Denis Welch from Great Britain will start on the front row on his own. That's because Neil Dunn cannot start the race. Peter Hopwood and Richard Carter share the second row. Now rolling over to row 3 of the grid, it's Rob Rowland and Paul Freestone. George Forbes and Colin Dodd sharing row 4. Starting from the 5th row, Warren James and Jeff Leake. That is the top 10 for you. This will be a 5-lap race, and we now have them underway in the Donald Healey International Tribute Race. And as expected, Denis Welch from Great Britain, who really dominated proceedings here yesterday, got a blinding start through Hell Corner the first time. There's plenty of fender leaning going on further back in the pack. Lots of tyre smoke as well as they lock it up and stand hard on the anchors through the first corner. But at this point in time, they all appear to have negotiated that corner safely, Richard Hay.
They do indeed, and keep an eye out for Denis Welch. His driving style is impressive, to say the least. He throws the car sideways everywhere. This race was due to have taken place as a support race to the Le Mans 24-hour this year, but Europe's loss is Australia's gain. We've got them here on the mountain.
Alan Moffat, some glorious machinery on display.
Well, I've always been a Healey lover. They're great cars, and they've been around for many, many years. Only 70,000 of this particular mark ever made, so if every one of them was running, there's going to be 70,000 very, very happy aficionados around the world watching this. But our leader, Denis Welch, is a real exponent in this class. He has got over 58 international victories in this car, and look at the way he's driving it. He throws it around with real abandon, and I just hope he realizes how narrow Mount Panorama can be from time to time.
I think he does, and very spectacular he is too. Keep an eye out too for the little bug eye or frog eye sprites as well, the forerunner of the MG Midget. Welch there drifts the car beautifully over the top.
He has a ball when he's behind the wheel, has had an outstanding international record of Austin Healey racing, and he looks as though he's going to be very tough to catch in this event.
Second place man there, Peter Hopwood.
A carbon copy script of yesterday's race. Hopwood making a bold charge. He's at this stage of proceedings closer to the race leader than he was yesterday, and he did gradually chip away at the lead, and he'll be looking to do more of the same. There's Peter Hopwood from Sydney, vastly experienced race car driver in all categories, and they start the long run down Conrod Straight for the first time in this 5-lap race. If you haven't seen the Austin Healeys in full flight before, some of our camera angles will certainly reflect the pace of these cars. They're no slouches.
There've been no slouches around the world. They would run at Sebring in America, the 12-hour races. They've run at Nürburgring for 24-hour races. They really have got the capacity to go the distance in their day. Sterling Moss drove this car with great aplomb. He drove it with his sister in its rally form. They were great rally exponents in the 60s, and a terrific car all around.
Third place man Rob Rowland there makes his way down towards Murray's Corner at the completion of the first lap. Rob managed to claim third place in yesterday's race, so doing much the same today.
A couple of drivers off, finding conditions a bit tricky early on.
George Forbes has spun his pride. He's back on the circuit.
Just joining us in commentary this morning for this race, Chris Dimmick, the man largely responsible for bringing the Healeys to Mount Panorama this weekend.
And there's a lot of fans here, Chris, that are happy that you went to that trouble.
Yes.
Peter Hopwood is making a race out of this as they charge up Mountain Straight. The second time, that's Hopwood in second.
He's got a lot of Bathurst experience, David. He's competed in all 3 of the Bathurst 12-hour races, so he certainly knows the circuit. He's been a sports car exponent, came second in 1980 in the Australian Sports Car Championship, so an all-round good driver who's having fun in this Healey today.
Welch was leading by 2.6 seconds at the end of the first racing lap. Be interesting to see if Hopwood can make some inroads. Look at Welch, he's got the car absolutely sideways across the top of the mountain. Spectacular stuff.
This fellow reminds me of Norm Beachy. This is the way Norm Beachy used to drive his Chevy Impalas and Mustangs. Not happy unless the rear was all the way out. Not my particular style. He's having second thoughts there. He's actually getting a little carried away with himself now. That understeer and then oversteer. You got to be pretty with it to pull out of a move like that.
You don't get any second chances on that part of the racetrack, do you, Alan?
No, you don't. And for those that have just seen Bathurst for the first time, these walls go all the way around the circuit. There's no love lost between the cement and the tarmac here.
Denis has campaigned in Europe with Healeys over a number of years and has won the Nürburgring classic race which has held over 10 laps a few times, scared the living daylights out of a few Ferraris and other classic cars. And I think he's won, out of his last 60 starts, he's won 58 and come second in the other two.
Not a bad record, is it?
But up to 59 because he won yesterday here at Bathurst, another international event.
He's going to round it off to 60 as long as he keeps it on the circuit. But looking beautiful, red's a wonderful color for anybody. There aren't too many people that dislike a red sports car.
Chris, of course, this red with the white roof was very much the colours of the works cars when they were in their heydays in the late 50s.
Exactly. The works rally cars were red with a white top, and the works circuit cars were actually Healey blue.
1998, marking the 100th anniversary of Donald Mitchell Healey's birth, the man that gave this fabulous sports car to the world. No change in the order. Rowland is still third. That's the man you're looking at now.
Rob Rowland from Victoria, and I'm sure that car would look very nice driving down Toorak Road any day of the week. But here at Mount Panorama, he's experiencing the thrills that not too many people get to enjoy in Australia. World-class circuit, absolutely one of the finest in the world, and we're very lucky to have it here in Australia, Bathurst, New South Wales.
Drivers yesterday, Chris, were saying after their first shakedown at Mount Panorama, they had achieved a lifelong ambition as we look at 4th and 5th on the racetrack.
Yes,
driving here.
Yes, a lot of the Healey enthusiasts had a lifelong ambition to drive at Bathurst and never thought they'd have it. That's the Ross Bond, the old Ross Bond car that dominated sports car racing in New South Wales in the late 60s, driven by Richard Carter. Warren James just ahead of him from Victoria, and a lot of guys have put a lot of effort in to get here. Some of them have only had their international licenses for a short while.
Chris, give us an idea of what the value of one of these cars in race trim. What would a fellow like this part with to lose that car this afternoon?
The cars like the old Ross Bond car, which have a huge history, of course, are very hard to value. They'd be up with the factory works type cars, probably around $200,000. But for a driving going very nice Healey 3000, you're probably looking at around the $50,000 mark. A concourse car, you're looking at around $100,000 in the big Healeys, and the Sprites are substantially cheaper.
Superb.
Fourth place man Warren James started off 9th on the grid, so he's having a good run here. Came 6th yesterday, and just managed to keep a little bit of a gap between himself and Richard Carter.
He's running across the top of the mountain now. This is the approach to Skyline.
The gap's just closed right in too.
It's quite a good battle between these cars. The Ross Bond car's been restored to its period trim, so it's not running the technology that a lot of the other cars are running, like roller rocker gear and steel crankshafts. Its advantage is in its handling and weight.
Richard Carter in car 29 making a real race out of this as they head back down the hill. These cars appeared at Bathurst every year up until 1965, so they very much form a large part of Mount Panorama history. The first Austin Healey appearing at this venue in 1954. It's great to have them back.
The first prototype, David, was launched at the Earl's Court Motor Show in London in 1952, so I'll give you an idea that they're oldies, but they're real goodies.
We'll get a time split for you as our leaders come back across the start-finish line to complete their third lap. Welch was leading. That man now on screen by 2.3 seconds. He's still hanging the tail out, having a great time as he heads back up pit straight. And Peter Hopwood is certainly making a very gallant charge. The gap now is just 1.1 seconds.
I was going to say, he's closing in. He took half a second out of him on the previous lap. Now he's taken better part of a second out of him.
Look at them.
Whoa. Hopwood trying a little bit of the Denis Welch style there, I think.
Well, it's worked for Denis Welch. Why not? Up mountain straight again through the gearbox. A big climb to the top of Mount Panorama. No place for the faint-hearted, Alan Moffat, as you well know.
Not at all, and he'll be thinking seriously about controlling the car under brakes here. He's well over to the left hand of the circuit as he flayed through the right-hander here, Volvo corner this weekend, and using the car all the way through the corner. Let's just have a look at his style through the cutting. If he's going to throw it around, this would be a place for it, although the wall is a little intimidating at the cutting. Yeah, well, those Dunlops are certainly getting a workover. This is a Dunlop Tires series, and believe me, I'm sure Dunlop are having to supply quite a few, Chris.
Well, Dennis is running the Dunlop racing tyre. He's running a 4.5-inch wire wheel. It's amazing the way he's getting that car around a corner.
You can see the rear tire width is actually quite narrow. It's no wider than the front, and hence the rear does come out rather easily, but the driver has to control that. He's got some real style, Richard. You can't say this fellow is anything but a professional. He's doing it very, very nicely. Not a lot of laps on Mount Panorama. This is his first visit, and he'll probably want to come back in something a little bit more forceful.
Oh, sure. I mean, all of the Europeans that come here reckon this is the greatest racing track in the world. I'm fairly sure that Denis Welch would agree with that.
I reckon Hopwood in second place has made up even more time across the top of the mountain as our leader Welch now exits Forest Elbow, the world-famous Forest Elbow. There's Hopwood.
He is closer.
Oh yeah, giving it his best shot as they wind it up for the rundown Conrod once more. That's Hopwood in second.
Driving a little bit more conservatively compared to the car in front of him. He may be hoping that Denis Welch will just get a little bit too sideways and have a lose. If he does make a mistake, certainly Peter Hopwood will be right there to pick up the change.
Well, Hopwood lost a little time on the entrance to Mandan Straight at the beginning of this lap, but I should tell you that his last lap was the fastest lap of the race so far.
Yes, that was a 2:44.27.
A little wide there. Here they are down at the bottom of Conrod, turning left through Murray's Corner, and look at that Welch. He just throws it through the corner. Those tires will be melting.
Over the line they go to complete 4 laps, just 1 to go now.
And the gap 1 second exactly, so Hopwood has reeled him in even further. 6.2 kilometres to negotiate now. Hopwood's got the race face on. I think we're going to see 2 drivers with bad attitudes across the top this time round.
Yes, Peter Hopwood's experience across the top might serve him well. Looks just to me as if the British car could have a few more legs in a straight line. If he's had 59 victories under his belt, you can be sure of one thing. That's a wonderfully tuned Healey engine he's got there. 6 cylinders. History of the car started with a 4-cylinder engine. Went a few years later, about 5 years later, to a 6-cylinder, 2.6 liter, and eventually, much to the delight of the Americans, a big 3-liter engine.
Dennis has got the headlights on to warn some of the slower cars, which they're starting to catch now that he's coming up upon them, and he doesn't want to be held up because look at this. Hopwood is moving right onto the tail now.
He is close. He's almost in the slip. Well, he's practically in the slipstream. He won't be worrying too much about that. Getting his car play. Oh, there we go. I say, Welch is getting worried.
Our leader Welch from Staffordshire in England. The man in second spot, Peter Hopwood from Sydney. Been quite a drive by the man behind the wheel of car 20, and look at the ground he's making up. Very rapid across the top of the mountain. I agree with Alan Moffat. The Englishman's car in a straight line appears to have the legs, but look at the ground.
There he goes.
Up, moves to the inside. Magnificent inside pass. No hesitation whatsoever. Scraped a little paint on the way through, I dare say.
Well, this is really going to have the Union Jack flying under the bonnet of number 1. Now he won't like that, with a race record of 59 victories under his belt, to be beaten by an Aussie. That was a wonderful move by Peter Hopwood. Really did it nicely. I think he's been sizing Welch up for the last lap. And now if he could just scoot down Conrad, Richard.
We'll take a look now and see whether or not the horsepower that Welch has got, the advantage we reckon he's got, is going to tell.
Certainly, Peter Hopwood set 2:44.2, the fastest lap for Healey at the circuit.
Side by side, as I approach Caltech's chase, the Englishman has produced a barnstorming pass.
He better not overcook it. He's protecting his line. He has some defensive driving. He's holding tight to the left-hander.
Around he goes. Peter Hopwood has overcooked it. He had the car positioned on the wrong side of the racetrack, and he's paid the ultimate price.
If he can keep it out of the sand trap, he should just about still be able to claim second.
Let's hope he can get back there for a podium finish. But here we have our United Kingdom visitor.
The Union Jack out.
Look at that.
Union flag.
Be prepared. That's the motto at Mount Panorama. Bring your own flag. A fabulous Donald Healey International Tribute race. And congratulations to Denis Welch, who had to work significantly harder for that victory than was the case yesterday. Commiserations to Peter Hopwood for putting up a great show. Let's see if he can get the car going again, though, and still maintain second on the racetrack. Welch has taken, well, a comfortable victory in the end. What a thrilling last lap.
It's absolutely it, mate.
No, Hopwood's no hope. That's a tragedy for the Sydney driver.
That may have caused the problem. I think he had an engine. The engine could have let him down at the very wrong moment, and it may have locked the car up on him. He didn't appear to be in too much trouble. Here he is coming on the outside. Can't save from that. Doesn't.
It's hard to know.
Well, that's certainly going to cause a problem for Eric Rudd. He has to drive that car to work on Tuesday.
Well, Now, I think Peter Hopwood just got in a little bit too late. He was trying to intimidate Welch on an outside move there. Wrong part of the track. Just a little bit too quick, Richard.
There just isn't room for two cars side by side there, is there?
Not really.
Rob Rowland, gentlemen, eventually finished second on the racetrack. The